to start experimenting, and like this is usable power.
It's not quite Home Shopping Network yet, but you can.
No, it's better than Home Shopping Network because you're learning how to engineer, build everlasting power cells.
I'm going to make the lady tasting ice cream face from the Home Shopping Network as soon as it's done, though.
Look at that. There it goes. And that runs fast, too. So 1.4 volts, and it's putting out, I'll put this on the 10 milliamps.
Bad.
Okay, greater than 10 milliamps. All right, it's putting out 90 milliamps. Okay, so I've had lots of requests from folks on how to build the crystal power cell. And if you followed along at laserhacker.com, I've had some crystal power cells on there powering a motor and an LED for the last 2 years on a live video feed. And I've just got comment after comment with folks asking, how do you build the crystal power cells? So this video is going to go over the building of this cell. It's very simple. It's a quick build, but I just thought I'd show the process I go through when I build a crystal power cell. And these crystal power cells, the first time I saw them on a YouTube video was years ago. John Hutchinson showed one running a small motor and kind of talked about them. IB Pointless 2, John Bedini, lid motor. A lot of us were experimenting with these a couple years ago. And then I just put some into long-term testing. I just put them on a shelf and said, let's see how these run over the next few years. And they've been doing quite well. I've been quite impressed with the duration of runtime I've gotten out of these. And I'm going to build up some more here. I'm actually going to build a larger system, but this video is going to document the building of a single cell. I'm going to build a 10-cell setup, and I'm going to get around 15 volts. And subscribe, follow along if you want to see that project. It will probably be the video after this one. So there seems to be about half a cup of alum in one of these containers. So I'm going to go ahead and use all of that. And I just want to break it up a little more in this coffee grinder so that it mixes better. It's really clumpy. But yeah, half cup of each of these ingredients. And that should be just right. Okay, so now a half cup of this no salt, sodium-free substitute. And this, if you look at the ingredients, this is potassium chloride. And that's one of the main ingredients in this. So we'll put the potassium chloride in here, half a cup. That's about right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we want to get half a cup of the borax in there. So as you can tell, these are very approximate measurements. I have not researched for a precise ratio because with a 2-year testing time and the previous cells still going, it would take a long time to really figure out the perfect ratio. But after 2 years of use, this ratio seems to be working pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and powder up the borax at this point. And that will leave the last ingredient, which is the Epsom salt. And we'll get that in here.
Yeah, do. Love. Thank you.
So half a cup.
Yeah, bro. Powder up that borax. Oh, the Epsom salt, yeah. That's right.
And you can see this stuff is really granular. So we're going to have to blend this up a little more to get a good mix.
I mean, this is a lot of the same stuff that's in my Crystal Run. Do not use your mom's coffee.
So that's our mix. I'm going to go ahead and put a cover over this, and we'll shake this up. We really want to mix all these ingredients together thoroughly. So.
CR Smith is alchemy. They're not supposed to.
Okay, so we got this stuff mixed up, and we're ready to actually build the crystal cell.
Anthony.
Okay, so we've got the burner on. I've got the magnesium core here ready, and we're just going to build a very simple crystal cell here. This will just be the magnesium core with a copper pipe cap. Okay. And the only difference I'm going to do is I'm going to put a spacer down here so that this magnesium core doesn't get.
Hear me.
Sorry, Nancy, did you want me to pause it? Did you have something that you guys wanted to say, or should I keep playing the video?
No, I wanted to say something, and this is the so basic stuff. Is that actually the thinner the amount of material, the better it works. I mean, I've gotten this thing down to a micron as far as the amount of material.
Right. I was thinking that. I'm glad that you bring that up. I was just going to look into, because I did nanotechnology with graphene, and I can imagine nanopolymers that would be perfect for this, especially in a supercapacitor.
It's the sodium silicate. When you coat the sodium silicate on your screw or your whatever is your inside piece and your inside piece, you're coating it with that, and then you're not going to short the thing out if you get really, really tight on it. And that's when I was talking about last meeting we were at, that the compound that I came up with that has the viscosity to it can be then actually sprayed.
Jeremy, get in here. What?
So it can be, so that's, but that's like the second step on this. The first step is, well, you can have somebody sitting there and grinding all this shit and making this and making something that's this big, but we are.
No, you want to grow it. See, so like, yeah, what we did in school. I mean, so there's a couple of things. Graphene, we did some laser ablation where you start with this fine graphite and then you burn it. But the best thing is when you seed it. When you seed it and you cause through electrolysis in like an ammonium sulfate solution, you have a positive negative charge, and you can let it start to grow. So if you seed it in certain places, it grows in certain patterns, and then you can use like chemical vapor deposition for sputtering or something. Sputter, right. Yeah, and let it to grow.
But that's like the next, for my ego.
Yeah.
The first step is I already know how to make these the size of a pin and get 0.3 to 1 volt off of them. But in the pico with the amps. And
right.
So we can easily show people how to make 10 million of those, which nobody's going to do.
Yeah, so the next video in this series, Nancy, he actually connects them up in series to get a 12-volt crystal battery setup with it.
Right. I've gotten up to 12, yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine if you print it, though, that would be the thing, because then you could sputter it and create a really long roll, a toilet paper roll of it.
Right, we talked about doing like 3D printing on this. But the first step is to get something that we get an outlet on, we can plug into, that we've got a really good set of plans, and people can make them themselves. Right? That's the first thing. And I think we're getting close. I mean, but some of these, like what you're showing in your video there, that's way too big. You don't need to be that big. You can get as much energy off of that thing if it was 1/10 the size.
Right. You have an equivalent charge for a smaller. Yeah, absolutely. And so what would be the rule? We'd have to think about like surface area, but is it, right. It's basically a surface area question, not a volume area question, right?
Right. And you can get a lot off of a sheet of copper, but one of the things about these cells is that they like to be in a cylinder, and like
shameful, not micro, nano. Sorry.
And so they like to be in the cylinder, and they also when I form them as a sphere, they're giving off the AC and DC without me doing any radio frequencies on them. And but I don't think we go to sphere with these guys. I think we keep them over in cylinders and get them something that we all say, okay, this is a doable, workable thing, and if it can run somebody's pump as a farmer, that'd be great. Something that they can actually have something that gives them the energy, that gives them some freedom.
Right.
So, and looking at the different materials.
I liked your thought there on sodium silicate base. I think that makes a lot of sense because you know the idea of growing the content is the best, and it wouldn't even require 3D printing because you could just use like you know, chemical vapor deposition and X-ray diffraction. And I think if you started with an aerogel and then just allowed it to seed, and then but you spray the aerogel, you know, onto a rapidly moving cellulose sheet, the same as film printing, you would probably be able to make something that would have, you know, we're talking all of a sudden not about microvolts. We're now all of a sudden we're talking about like a megavolt, perhaps, or something. And
when I put them on a circuit board, and with gold pins, I was getting a volt off of each pin, and this was just breadboards and things that my deceased brother I inherited from, and so I'm playing around with the power cells with his breadboards and with his little circuit boards and stuff. And it was kind of cool when he had the actual circuit put in there, and I could go from one cell to the other on his circuit board, you know.
Bernie, can you pull up I put a screen share up. Can you show that for a second? So this is kind of an old paper at this point because it's from last year, but it's still pretty useful stuff, which is this idea of the synthesis of sodium silicate-based silica aerogels with graphene oxide by ambient pressure drying. So, I mean, by using, you know, the volume shrinkage law and like, well, you know, as we talk about laws and pore volume, surface area, and compressive strength of the composite aerogel, then it would allow for like a sponge to, you know, to place this. And so what you would have is essentially megawatt hours in a tape roll, right? And so that could be the way that you would send the energy essentially once it's packaged in some sort of a labyrinth of
right.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the you know third step, and we're just trying to stay.
Sorry.
First step today, because Bernie and I have talked about third.
Yeah,
step.
so I'll finish playing the rest of this laser saber video of how to bake the basic one, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it, and then I'm going to play his second one on how to make them into 12-volt battery cells, because that actually potentially, even like if it's a year, 2 year, it seems like it's even longer indefinitely, but 12-volt cells, like that's pretty good usage for like camping, like trailers.
You could run an LED light. You could have a light.
Exactly, right? Like you can light your whole LED lights, like patio lights, all sorts of stuff with that. Very, very useful.
So Bernie, this is Labor Saber. Is that who you said who it is?
Yes.
And is Labor Saber in on this discussion with us right now?
No, he's not. His channel actually is quite huge. Let me scroll down here. Yeah, so this video actually has 1.2 million views. He put it out 8 years ago. So we'd love to get on with Laser Saber at some point. Absolute genius as well. Join the community of the free energy revolution. Laser Saber.
Yeah, I would think that it would be good to connect with him and ask him in on this, and I would right away talk to him about reducing the amount of material that he's using. And part of the challenge with this is that it's all like a bunch of people doing it in their garage and just to run a fan or some dumb shit, and it's not taken seriously.
But that's all the Illuminati ever did with it for hundreds of years anyway. So I mean, to be fair, big fans. But
so, I don't know if this person wants to work with us on it. Like I said, the principle is real basic, and we can. What I talked about before is like we're on a typewriter, and bringing it to a typewriter with the electric typewriter with that little digital thing, little line that would appear before you hit the return button. That's like getting this to that box that's got the outlet in it. And there's so much more past this for us to do, but it's like, we need to get it into as many people's hands with as much ease for them to produce something that is going to be usable for them and something that is tangible to them, such as, running a heater or something for them in the winter. Something that is a necessity for them to have. Are you following me, guys?
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I think,
absolutely. So
I
on
think
that note,
so-
here, I'll just play the last 4 minutes of this, though, so that everybody that's watching this can see how you actually can make the single circuit. It's very easy, and it's actually pretty similar to like Organite and Organite's making, correct?
It pushed up from the bottom and out the top, which has happened to mine. If you look at the live video feed on mine, over the years, this has actually been getting pushed up from the bottom. So after 2 years, it's about a quarter, maybe 3/8 of an inch higher out the top. And I want to stop that by putting a cap on the bottom. So yeah, we'll proceed. Okay, so I've got a small wood disc. I'm going to go ahead and glue that on the bottom of this. And it's really, gravity is going to hold it down, so I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the wood here and just basically glue that right to the center. All right, so we're ready to start adding the material around the cell. And I've got the hot plate set to warm. You really don't want to overheat this too quickly, or this material will just come bubbling up and out of the cell, and it'll be a real mess. So, okay, so I have this burner on the lowest setting. This is on just warm, and I can tell that the crystal cell material is really getting hot. It starts to get in a molten looking state, and that's what you want. So on the lowest setting, it's adequate heat for really getting this stuff melted down. Okay, I'm going to use this heat gun just to warm up the top section, because a lot of times the bottom section will get really hot, but the top section will not be as hot, and you'll get this stuff boiling at the bottom and still kind of crusty at the top, and that can also create a situation in which this material will bubble up out of the cell. So a little bit of heat up here. Okay, so it's starting to really bubble and boil in here, so I have this small piece of wire, and I can work around and just kind of work the material back down into there a little bit. But this is getting very close to being done here. I just want to make sure it has enough material to bring it all the way to the top. So I've had to alternate between the hot plate and the cooling stand here a little bit to get the temperature right, but this looks to be just about right. So what I really don't want is, I don't want a lot of large air bubbles, and yet I want the material to be in a liquid state and very loose and fluid around the magnesium core, and that's exactly how this is right now. So finally got this correct, and I'll bring down the camera close to this so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so you can see here that there's a small bubble over here, but if I tap it, it just disappears. So we really want to keep it in this state as it cools down. Okay, so I really like where that's at. So rather than letting this bubble up and battle that changing in temperature, I'm going to try cooling this off at the bottom and just setting this in water at this point. I really think that's the secret to stop this from bubbling out of the top. We'll just try it. I've never done it this way, but I think setting this in here will allow this to just firm up just the way I want it. So I'll leave that and we'll see. All right, so this is cooling off, and you can see a really nice top surface on here. And taking this from the hot plate right at that critical moment and setting it in the water to cool off stopped the heat from the bottom that was creating the bubbles that were coming through the top. So that seems to be working really well. Now you just want to leave this alone until this becomes rock hard. So don't get impatient. Don't go, oh, I'm going to test it now. If you were to jostle this, you would form a crack fracture between the two materials. So you want to let this set up hard like concrete before you do anything with it at this point. So we'll leave this in here. I'll come back in 20 minutes, half an hour, and take a look at it. Okay, so the crystal cells all cooled off. The crystal material set up hard like concrete inside here, and that's just how we want it. I went ahead and sanded down the outside, so this is all cleaned up. It's ready to do a first test, and what I thought we had tested with is this small DC motor. So let me just connect up here. I want to connect to the outside of the copper case. So we'll make sure we
Oh,
get some
that
good
bro is
contact
gonna
there.
play
And
music. Oh, he's gonna
look at
cause-
that. There it goes. And that runs fast too.
That music
So yeah,
causes
I'd say that's a
copyright
really good
problems.
crystal
So
cell.
angry at this guy.
Hey, it's got some torque. Listen to that, folks. You can hear that snapping against the side there. So that's
Man, that's so funny though. Like, welcome to the organic chemistry cooking show. Make sure you only use organic chemistry in the organic cooking chemistry show. That's pretty good.
Great. Okay, so a lot of the problems that are being shown in there, with that compound. I mean, that's
Bernie,
like,
can you go back actually to that and click on borate from the borax? Sorry. Well, you continue. Sorry, Nancy.
Jeremy joined us, alien scientist, and it's Jeremy.
Jeremy, what's up? I'm glad you're here. Click on the borate. So at the top it says hydrated borate. Borax is a hydrated borate. Top. There you go.
Oh yeah, borate.
Yeah, borate's a really fascinating chemical or element, right? Several boron oxyminion negative ions, right? So I mean,
okay.
Yeah, these are interesting groups because boron's an interesting. It has three bond angle valences, so it can form some interesting bonds.
Okay,
they use it in Pyrex. Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, so the formula, the basic formula before you put doping stuff in to try to get more power out of these cells, has to do with Rochelle salts. Rochelle salts are 2 parts cream of tartar and 1 part baking soda.
Of course, it's cream of tartar. That's great.
Okay, and there's your potassium. And so that is a waste product from the wineries, and we're right in wine country here. We actually get the waste product, and we've been able to get more power out of those, about 50% higher power from the actual waste product and not the cream of tartar. So they cut it. They cut that with, I think it's calcium carbonate, I believe is what they put in there.
TechSpread, that's an interesting thing. I think the answer to your question, TechSpread just asked.
Actually, Nancy and John go deep into that a little bit further, and it's of structuring them like the tree cells, the fractals, right?
Right. So now with so you can create that. I say Pizio, somebody else says Pizio, but you create that compound Rochelle salts when you it's just like what I was talking about when I was running the sugar, get it hot, and it goes liquid. That's what happens with the baking soda and the cream of tartar. You warm it up and it goes liquid, and then it combines, and then with John's original power cell, it would recrystallize, and you'd have to catch it right at that point where it had turned to this gooey taffy. You'd pour it, and then you'd make the cell. We've advanced since then. So we've got 2 parts of cream of tartar, 1 part baking soda, 1/2 of Epsom salt. Okay, and that'll give you that run to your components and pour it really quick. But then if you add 1/2 cup of white sugar, the good old carbon whore of Babylon, what it does is it slows down that crystallization process, and it's actually the reverse. Saltwater taffy is white sugar and cream of and like a 10 parts white sugar, 1 part cream of tartar, and you get saltwater taffy. So you get the sugar will not recrystallize.
No.
Okay, so the sugar and the cream of tartar, those 2 in combination, in that particular combination, because I tried a lot of them, will create.
What kind of sugar? Like fructose, sucrose? Does it matter? Does glucose work better?
No, it's plain white sugar.
Sugar cane, right?
So
Yeah.
sucrose, probably.
That's sucrose, right? Plain white sugar. And So then when you're watching it, and I was explaining to the guys, and it's all guys here, so.
Don't worry, Nancy. There's plenty of females and girl energy in the live chat, though. It's
Yeah,
balanced out.
see
But
Emily
you're
right
holding it
there.
down pretty solid for
Yeah.
a room full
All
of
the, all the
dudes.
ladies in the chat
Much
are all
respect.
yeah.
If you've done any candy making, okay, you want to get to what's called the hard ball stage. I'm sorry, the softball. You don't want the hard ball. You want the softball. And it'll go through this really sticky. You got to keep it under, medium low heat as you're doing this. And when I have a stainless steel counter that I slap it on and see if it makes a little ball. Then you pick it up, and if it's sticky between your fingers, like it is when you're fertile, women, if you know that, okay, it's not time yet. You got to let this go further so it doesn't.
So you're trying to make you're caramelizing the sugar to sucrose into a glassy substrate, or is that the plan?
Well, no, it's all of it. All of it is going through this process. So it's not just the sugar that you're. It's the whore of Babylon, okay? And so the carbon is modifying the other crystals in it so that they don't recrystallize. And it's the relationship, the harmonics, if you will, between the carbon and the potassium that's in that cream of tartar. So anyway, as a 4-year-old, what you end up with is something now that you can form it into anything you want. You can push it into something and stick your screw or whatever on it, or what I mean. I have rolled it out into the tiniest little threads and stuff, and I wrapped it around and I made Mobius power cells with it. So it makes it much easier. And if you wanted to stay that way, so that that your actual power cell is always flexible.
A Mobius supercapacitor is a brilliant idea.
Yeah, well, the Mobius speaker thing that we produced that I made I've got a video on that. And anyway, so the power cells that were the Mobius, all along that Mobius had different power readings. So I think that's going to be part of our time and space thing that we're working on.
Julia says,
how did you keep them flexible?
The Mobius, you use.
How did you keep it flexible?
How did I keep what flexible? The compound or the metals? I just use foil.
I was trying to follow along here, and it sounded like you were saying you kept it flexible, and I didn't know how you did that or how the sodium silicate. How did you use that?
Keeping it in the putty form by adding the sugar, I think, right?
Yeah, by adding the sugar, you end up with a matrix that when you put it between a negative electropotential metal and a positive electromotive, that electromotive potential metal, okay? When you put that taffy, that putty between them, you can, if it's film, you can bend the film wherever, and the compound will bend with it.
But then but the material stays flexy.
So that sounds easy. How did sodium silicate relate to any of this?
It didn't. Sodium silicate is just what you put on the metals so that you don't short the thing out. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the sodium silicate.
Right. I was just saying earlier that you could use sodium silicate if you wanted to do this because with the nanoscopic scale, the surface area to volume ratio is tremendously. The amount of surface you have is increased, and the amount of volume is decreased so tremendously that you could have in a foam an aerogel of sodium silicate.
But this putty also this putty, when it's at that really sticky and it has a lot of viscosity, it's still usable. You can spray it.
So
So that's how you can make that very thin coating. But anyway, this is what I see with the laser
2
saber.
points to Homidae Theodosia. Sodium silica acts as a dielectric insulatory.
Right.
So I think that what essentially is going on here is that you're building a crystal, which is you're forming a crystal under voltage so that it's bias oriented across the crystal, so that any valence electron that's occupying that state within this lattice structure has a higher probability of migrating toward one side of this crystal than the other. And there's plenty of background radiation there if you're on the right frequencies and you're interacting, your substrate is interacting on the right frequencies to pick up that background
Bernie, can you pull up my thing for a second?
Cosmic microwave background, the CMB radiation, and other radiations that are all around us, just in the air, available for low energy. Some of these are low energies, these frequencies, but there might be ways to tune into many of them simultaneously and harvest those energy flows for whatever is going on in these crystals. I think that it might have something to do with this, because this is the experimental side that we kind of venture out and look for in the physics community to see. We got to have the people that are just trying all kinds of crazy shit, and sometimes they discover some interesting stuff, and then it's up to the physics community to then reflect back on this and try to figure out just what the heck is going on.
Well, I disagree. I think it's up to the people to build these things. I don't.
We got to be the scientists. Yeah.
I really, that we need feet on the ground people that are going to actually say, okay, what's the best way to manage this? We understand the physics of what's happening between two.
But do we understand physics?
See, Jeremy, this is the big conundrum. See, and I think it's in all of our lives. Do we be the police? Do we be the lightning rod, or would we be the lightning bolt? Are we the thing that comes after and then explains it, or are we the people that are making the thing now before it's explained? Because scientists later on can write these papers, all these PhD papers that come after, usually after the person
we have to
comes up with
take
a crazy
this
thing.
discovery, and then we have to put it to the test through various experiments so that we can get the right model.
Exactly.
The right model, then
That's
we
true.
can program the AI to go and do material science searches to be like, oh, well, what's the best way?
I mean, the thing is, though, these conversations are where we get these great ideas. The idea, for instance, of talking about, bias-oriented crystals that are maybe radiomagnetically built.
Skeptics rarely discover anything new, and I hold to that statement. And my next question is going to be, how in the world is there an alternating current version of this? Because if that's what's going on, it means standard physics has no idea what's happening here. And I love that idea. Yeah. How do I make the AC version?
Oh, he's got an
Well,
AC. Put a coil at AC off of it, unless he converted it.
Can you say it louder? Didn't hear you.
AC version. So this is interesting, because there's a number of interesting materials that we've classified based on their electrical properties. If you want to share this graphic I have up, ferroelectrics are super interesting because they have this what's called a hysteresis curve, where the electric and magnetic fields actually oscillate, negative and positive. And so if you had something that